What if your bath was also your trial? A place where the water didn't wash away your sins, but instead revealed them to a judging authority. That was the brutal reality under a system that weaponized belief itself. The medieval church had the power to turn a simple daily habit into a mortal sin, making your own body a battlefield. We're about to analyze 7 of these forbidden habits, and the final one on this list wasn't just a sin you could commit, it was a sin you couldn't escape simply by being human. Let's get one thing straight. The idea that medieval people never bathed is a myth. In the early Middle Ages, public bathhouses were common, a leftover piece of Roman engineering. But that engineering had a critical, non-technical flaw. Picture it. You step inside. The heat hits you first, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, thick with steam. You smell the wet wood, the sweat, and hear the echo of a dozen conversations bouncing off the stone walls. This isn't a private spa. You're sharing a tub of murky, lukewarm water with your neighbors, your business contacts, everyone. This was the town's social hub, the medieval equivalent of a community center and a bar combined. And that was the operational problem. The church looked at this scene and didn't see hygiene. They saw an unregulated, chaotic system, a breeding ground for the mortal sin of lust. Your simple act of getting clean was reframed as a public moral crime, staining you with damnation. So what's the critical failure in this system from their perspective? It's the unsupervised human interaction. But if cleansing your body in public was a sin of opportunity, the act of decorating it in private was seen as a direct challenge to God himself. The medieval elite had their own version of a verified checkmark, but it wasn't a blue icon. It was a deathly white face. The paler your skin, the clearer the strategic message. You don't labor under the sun. You rule. To achieve that look, you'd apply a thick paste of white lead, ceruse, to your skin. Imagine the heavy, chemical feel of it slowly poisoning you over years, causing skin lesions, hair loss, and madness. It wasn't just makeup. It was slow-motion suicide for the sake of status. This was their physical social media filter, a toxic form of brand management. It makes you wonder what our own modern status symbols are subtly doing to us. Let me know your analysis of a modern equivalent in the comments. Of course, the church saw this as the sin of pride. But it could get worse. A woman altering her face so drastically could also be accused of trying to magically deceive or enchant a man. A short leap from vanity to an accusation of witchcraft. So, which the more subversive act here? Challenging a lord with a sword, or challenging God's reality with a layer of poison? And if changing your physical appearance was a sin of pride, trying to predict your physical future was a far darker transgression. Forget leeches for a moment. A top-tier medieval physician wouldn't check your wound first. He'd check the sky. Your survival didn't depend on observable symptoms. It depended on the position of Saturn. Imagine you have a deep cut on your arm, festering. The doctor unrolls a parchment not to check anatomy, but the zodiac. Your arm is ruled by Gemini. If the moon is in Gemini, he won't touch you. This wasn't malpractice to them. It was rigid scientific protocol. It's the equivalent of a modern flight controller checking his daily horoscope before clearing a jet for takeoff. A system that is intricate, logical by its own rules, and totally disconnected from the physical problem at hand. The church had a different analysis. By consulting the stars for answers, you weren't being scientific, you were committing the sin of divination. You were placing your faith in cosmic patterns, not in God's will. So what's the fundamental system conflict here? A battle over the source code of reality. Is the universe governed by celestial mechanics or by the unknowable mind of God? This was seen as placing your soul in spiritual danger. But the next habit could get your body burned at the stake. In our world, herbal medicine means a gentle, natural alternative. In the medieval world, it could mean you just signed your own death warrant. You have a fever that's been climbing for 3 days, hitting 104 degrees. An old woman from the village gives you a poultice of willow bark and a bitter tea that tastes like dirt and roots. Hours later, your fever breaks. This cure didn't come from a physician consulting the stars for the right planetary alignment. It came from a decentralized, open-source database of local botany passed down for centuries. But that's the problem. You used an unapproved cure that worked. It's like fixing a critical software bug with a patch you found on a fringe internet forum, completely bypassing the official corporate update. So what's more dangerous to an established power? An approved science that fails, or a forbidden one that succeeds? That's the strategic breakdown we do here. If it's valuable to you, hit like and subscribe. It keeps these field reports funded. Because when the local priest sees your recovery, he doesn't see medicine. He sees a result that didn't come from God, so it must be from the devil. Your effective cure is now the primary evidence in your trial for witchcraft. This pertained to healing your own body, but when it came to bringing new life into the world, the stakes became infinitely higher. Childbirth in the medieval era wasn't a medical procedure. It was a spiritual war zone, and the midwife was the commanding officer on the ground. You are in a small, dark room that smells of sweat, iron, and burning herbs. The only sounds are the low moans of the mother and the steady, calm chanting of the midwife. This woman holds knowledge passed down for 1,000 years. How to turn a baby in the womb, which roots to chew to ease the pain. Her authority comes from one thing: results. The university physician was like corporate tech support, reading from a manual. The midwife was the veteran field technician who knew how to hit the machine just right to make it work, an unsanctioned, highly effective operator. But when the church looks at this scene, they don't see expertise. They see a rival power. Her chants are pagan incantations. Her herbs are witchcraft. By easing the mother's pain, she could be accused of defying God's curse on Eve. So, who's the bigger threat to the system? An invading army, or one old woman who commands the threshold of life and death, completely outside of your control? This was about controlling the arrival of life. The next habit was about preventing it entirely, the ultimate sin against God's plan. For a medieval peasant woman, another pregnancy wasn't a blessing. It was often a death sentence, either from starvation or on the birthing bed itself. So, a secret knowledge existed. It was a knowledge of roots and herbs, passed down in whispers. The bitter taste of a specific tea consumed in absolute secrecy. The cold knot of fear in your stomach as you performed this quiet ritual, hoping to seize control of your own biology. This was a private biological hack on the system, using forbidden botany. It was the medieval equivalent of using an encrypted peer-to-peer network to bypass the central server's core programming. Because to the church, this wasn't a choice. It was a direct act of war against God's plan, a mortal sin against nature itself. So, from a systems control perspective, which is more revolutionary? Questioning a king's authority or questioning God's authority over your own body? One is treason. The other is a sin against creation itself. All these were actions and rituals you chose to perform, but the final sin wasn't something you did, it was something you were. We've covered actions, rituals, and choices, but this final sin had nothing to do with choice. It was about the simple, physical reality of your own body. The sun is beating down. It's 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and you've been harvesting wheat for 10 hours. Your tunic is soaked with sweat, sticking to your skin like a wet rag. The logical, practical, survival-based decision is to take it off to cool your body's core temperature. Your body is a tool, and you are simply keeping the machine from breaking down. But the church's doctrine saw this differently. This is like an IT policy that flags your processor for overheating, then punishes you for trying to improve the ventilation because it violates the terms of service. From a control perspective, what's the ultimate expression of power? It's making you ashamed of your own hardware. Because to the church, your body wasn't a tool. It was a walking vessel of temptation. Your simple act of thermoregulation was reframed as a public display of lust, a failure of modesty. You were taught to be ashamed of the very skin that kept you alive. All these sins point to one single, inescapable strategic conclusion. The field analysis is complete, and the strategic lesson is clear. The most dangerous territory in the medieval world wasn't a battlefield or a plague-ridden city. It was your own body. Every act we've examined, from cleaning and healing to decorating and simply existing, was subject to a theological framework that could reclassify survival as sin. This system wasn't arbitrary. It was a brutally effective technology of control. By making you a potential heretic in your own skin, it ensured that the ultimate authority over your life and your afterlife belonged to the institution that wrote the rules. The real war wasn't for land or crowns. It was for the control of human nature itself. This knowledge is a weapon, and our numbers must grow. Subscribe now and join the front line. Report in the comments, effective immediately, which of these 7 rules was the most brutal tactical move by the church. Hit the like button. It's the signal that you're operational with us. Now spread this intel, because the past is a live combat zone, and others need to be armed with this knowledge. Don't go dark. The next briefing is critical. We've analyzed the body. Next we analyze the mind and its breaking point.